Ever wonder why investing advice seems to make things worse when money is already tight? Today, I'll explain how to build wealth like you're 5 years old. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what to do first and what to do second. You'll also learn when investing actually makes sense for someone who's barely keeping the lights on. Picture this. You're making decent money, maybe $55,000 or $60,000 a year. On paper, that sounds fine, and for a lot of people it should be enough. But after taxes, rent, and car payment, you've still got groceries, your phone bill, and that gym membership you keep meaning to cancel. Most months, you've got maybe $200 left, and some months, you have less than that. You're not irresponsible, and you're not blowing money on champagne and designer shoes. You're not building anything either. You're just treading water. And every finance video on your feed is screaming at you to invest, start a Roth IRA, buy index funds, build wealth, start now, or regret it forever. So you scrape together $100 and throw it into an investment app. That feels like the responsible move, like you're finally doing something. 2 weeks later, your car needs a repair you didn't see coming. You don't have the cash, so you put it on a credit card at 24% interest. That $100 you invested needs to grow for years just to cancel out 1 month of credit card interest. You didn't build wealth, you just moved money from one hole to a slightly fancier-looking hole. That's the trap. And it quietly catches a lot of people who are genuinely trying to do the right thing. Here's what nobody explains clearly enough to actually stick. Investing in debt are playing tug-of-war inside your bank account. On one side, your investments might earn, in a good year, somewhere around 7 to 10%. On the other side, your credit card is charging you 20, 22, sometimes 26% every single year. The average American household carrying credit card debt pays over $1,000 a year in interest alone. And that number climbs higher every time they make only the minimum payment. Run the numbers and the answer gets obvious fast. You simply can't out-invest debt that expensive. The math doesn't allow it. It's like trying to fill a bathtub while the drain is wide open. It doesn't matter how fast you pour the water in. So before the investing conversation even starts, the first question is, what does your debt look like? High-interest debt, credit cards, payday loans, anything above 10 or 12%, that's a financial emergency. Paying that off first is functionally the same as earning a guaranteed 20% return. You cannot get that in the stock market reliably, and not without serious risk either. Wiping out a credit card balance is the best investment most people in debt could ever make. But wait, here's the twist most people don't see coming. Not all debt is the same, and that distinction changes everything. A student loan at 4%? Different math entirely. A mortgage at 6%? Also different. Because the market historically averages around 7 to 10% annually, low-interest debt changes the equation completely. You're no longer losing the tug-of-war. Now it's close enough that the numbers start to matter. So here's your first filter. High-interest debt above 10%. Pay that off before you invest a single dollar. Low-interest debt below 7%. Investing alongside it might actually make sense. Here's a concrete example of why. Say you have a student loan at 5%. Index funds have historically returned around 8% annually. That's a 3% gap in your favor. Meaning every dollar you invest instead of prepaying that loan is theoretically working harder. Over a 20-year period, that gap compounds into a meaningful difference. But, and this is important, that math only holds if you stay invested through the bad years. If you panic and sell when the market drops 30%, you just lost both bets. So low-interest debt isn't a simple invest instead answer. It's a invest instead, but only if you can keep your hands off it answer. The gray zone. Debt between 7 and 10% is genuinely a judgment call. It depends on your interest rate, your risk tolerance, and whether you'd actually leave the investment alone during a rough market. There's no single right answer there, but above 10%, there's no debate. Pay it off. Now, here's the thing debt conversations always skip. Before investing even enters the picture, there's one thing you need that has nothing to do with the market: an emergency fund. Think of it as a financial seatbelt. Not exciting, not glamorous, not going to make you rich. But without it, every unexpected expense, the car repair, the medical bill, the busted water heater, becomes a debt event. And every debt event costs you more than whatever you might have made investing. Most experts say 3 to 6 months of expenses. But if you're paycheck to paycheck right now, even $500 to $1,000 sitting in a dedicated savings account changes everything. It's the difference between a bad week and a financial spiral that takes months to recover from. Here's the open loop I want you to hold on to. There's one exception, one situation where you should invest even if you're in debt, even if your emergency fund isn't built yet. We're coming back to it. It's important. So where are we? You've killed the high-interest debt. You've got a small emergency cushion. Now what? Now investing starts to make sense, but practically, not emotionally. You don't need to max out every account or understand every financial product ever invented. You need one move, just one. If your employer offers a 401k match, that's free money, not a metaphor. Literally free money sitting on a table that you keep walking past. If your company matches 50% of what you contribute, up to 6% of your salary, and you don't contribute, you are handing back part of your paycheck. You earned that. You're leaving it on the table because the enrollment form felt overwhelming. Contribute enough to get the full match. That's a guaranteed 50% return before the market does anything. Nothing else in personal finance comes close. Okay, I promised you an exception. Here it is. That 401k employer match is it. Capture the match first. Even before paying off debt, even before the emergency fund is complete, the math forces it. A guaranteed 50% return beats a 24% credit card payoff in pure numbers. Contribute enough to get every matching dollar, then pivot hard to cleaning up everything else. That's the one exception. Just that one. Now let's go back to where we started. You. $200 left at the end of the month. Car repair on a credit card. Feeling like investing is something that happens to other people? People with extra money and a solid understanding of what a brokerage account actually is. Here's what you know now. You're not behind because you haven't invested yet. You might be behind because the drain was open and nobody told you to close it first. The order is what matters. And the order is this. Capture the employer match if it exists. That happens immediately, before anything else. Then attack high-interest debt like it owes you money, because it does. Then build your emergency cushion so the next surprise doesn't wreck you. Then, when there's actual breathing room, start putting money into low-cost index funds consistently. Not dramatically, consistently. That sequence isn't glamorous. It's not going to go viral. But it's a plan that doesn't collapse the moment your transmission dies or your landlord raises the rent. It's designed for real life, which, as you may have noticed, is inconvenient on a regular schedule. One more thing worth saying. The financial industry has a vested interest in making this feel complicated. Complicated things are easier to sell products around. Complexity also keeps people paralyzed, and paralyzed people don't make decisions, which often benefits the people selling the products. But the actual logic here is almost embarrassingly simple. Stop the bleeding first, build a cushion, capture free money, then grow. That's it. 4 steps. Every slick product someone's trying to sell you either fits into that sequence or it doesn't belong in your life yet. You're not too broke to build wealth. You might just be building it in the wrong order. So here's the question worth arguing about in the comments. If someone has $10,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest, but their employer matches 401k contributions dollar for dollar, do they capture the match first or wipe out the debt first? The math points one way. Human psychology points another. Where do you land?